For those out there who don't know, I actually do a live radio program now. I've only been doing it for a few weeks. It's called Mental Illness and You. No, it's not. It's called Mental Illness Education and You. Me and You, for short. It's a conversation with a different person each week who happens to live with a mental illness. Now, this young man that I'm going to introduce to you, Ankith, I was introduced to him through MEACT, Mental Illness Education ACT. He has an incredible story. Now, I could not use the whole of our interview on the radio because of time constraints. So I asked his permission, and he's allowed me to use the interview for the podcast, the full, complete, pretty much unabridged interview. He is an incredible young man. I am delighted to bring you his story. If you want to hear the live show, I'm going to put all the details down below. It's 2XX in Canberra. In fact, for YouTubers, we might put that on the screen for you so you can see it. But that happens every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Enough talking from me. Like, share, and subscribe, and definitely check out this interview with Ankith. He is amazing, and I'm going to be speaking to him some more. I need to get to know this kid. He is amazing. And he plays chess blindfolded. It's the only negative thing I could say about him. Let's kick off and see what happens, eh? Welcome to Mark My Words. Mark My Words is the story of my journey from a place where I was shattered to where I could live again. It is a great pleasure today to ask somebody new, who are you? So let's do it. Ankith, who are you? Ankith, who are you?
Hello, Mark. Pleasure to be here. So, a great question. Who are you? So, I guess to answer that, what I'd say is I'm a 19-year-old and I currently go to the ANU. So, I'm studying there, and I parallelly have a job with the APS. So, I work down at Services Australia. And I'm a proud mental health advocate and have a lived experience of my own, and also try to support and help people wherever I can. So I'm into advisory and advocacy. I'm also a radio broadcaster, and I play chess. I've had the privilege to play chess for Australia on the unrated virtual level because I started during COVID. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Wow, the chess thing has thrown me for a loop, mate. We were getting on so well, and then you're a chess master. So I'm going to have to be on my best behavior here. So, mate, I understand that your journey with mental health, and particularly sharing your lived experience, started a little bit differently to most. You apparently began your journey as a carer for your parents.
Yes, that's right. So back when I was 8, actually, it was when I first figured out that my parents go through some health issues. So until then, things were brilliant and lovely. And my dad actually suffers from multiple sclerosis. And multiple sclerosis being a disease which is really hard to diagnose in itself, he's apparently had symptoms since he was my age, so since he was a young teenager. But things started to patch up until when I was 8. So it took him quite a while to figure out what was actually going on. And when we did find out, it was, well, to say the least, traumatic. And it was a difficult conversation for my dad to have, saying that he could literally be in any form of health in any which way on any given day, and he might not even make it. He might not be there the next day. And that was a difficult conversation to have with an 8-year-old. But I think it was important because he kind of tried to tell me it's your time to step up and you've got to not be the child anymore. You've got to take care of things, your own things, and also like he was wanting me to take care of my mum. So that was about my dad. But I'm also a primary carer for my mother.
Hmm.
and she has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
Hmm.
And so, again, for her, it was actually a really late diagnosis because we wouldn't understand what was going on. And she was given kind of a provisional diagnosis of something else. And we always used to think, okay, it's maybe something else. It's nothing really major, nothing big. But until really late, and it has a kind of a funny story to it. Like, my dad and mom both went to a counseling kind of session for my dad because he was feeling a bit not up to the mark. And when they went for that session, my dad was kind of telling his story and how he's feeling. The psychiatrist, I think it was, actually picked up that my mother has a mental health condition. So we went for my dad, but my mom got diagnosed, which is a really funny story to tell because it's a really odd one.
Yeah, you don't expect that at all. You're going in to support somebody else, and you walk out with the diagnosis.
100%. Like, you're there to give moral support, you're there as a carer,
Yeah.
and just in 15, 20 minutes, oh, the patient's different. And it's like, yeah, so that was a hilarious story. So since then, I've been caring for both of them. And I think
Now, you were
that's
going to initially, you were going to share your lived experience as a carer, which is incredibly important to do. But I
100%.
understand that while you were in the process of building up to start telling your carer story, you started to suffer some mental ill health as well.
Yes, that is right. And I think it was just a toll of the pressure and responsibility that you have to have being a carer. And since I was young, it did take a toll on me. And but the issue was, for me, we weren't able to recognize that it was mental health issues because I was having all kinds of physical symptoms with headaches, migraine attacks, and kind of like numbness, slight dizziness. And whenever I used to go to a doctor, they used to say it's like physical symptoms, so they wouldn't even think of mental health. And I've been to multiple neurologists, had so many MRIs that I can't count. And all of them used to say, no, everything's clean. We don't know what's happening. And until things really hit doomsday, and I was so anxious that I couldn't get out of the door, I couldn't go to school, couldn't go anywhere, literally, did we finally figure out that, because I was having panic attacks and all sorts of stuff, that, okay, this is not neurological, this is mental health related.
But what's curious about this story is that you would assume that being a carer for somebody that has mental health issues, you would be the first to pick up on your own mental health. And it says something interesting about it, isn't it? That we're we can be often, when we're first getting having trouble with mental ill health, we can excuse it away or we can pass it off. We don't just we're hesitant to say maybe this is a mental health thing.
Oh, 100%. And I think, though I personally didn't have any stigma saying I don't have a mental health issue or I do have a mental health issue, I think, as you've really rightly pointed out, it takes a lot to identify that you're actually struggling and that it's actually mental health related. So for me, like, I think being a carer, I mean, you should think, like, when you're caring for someone with a mental health issue, oh, it's easy to pick. But because my mother, most of her common symptoms would be suicidality, as in thoughts,
Mhm.
suicidal, kind of like self harm tendencies, feeling really depressed, crying spills. So these were the kind of regular symptoms that I had seen. But since I, as a person, did not have any of these symptoms, at least as of then yet, I did not understand what was going on. And because it was all physical symptoms and I had never had any suicidal thoughts or crying spills, self harm episodes, it really was not evident to me that it was mental health related.
Yeah.
And the
It,
other,
it's
yeah,
it's interesting as well because even people with exact same diagnosis, their reality of the symptoms can be worlds apart, can't they? So, if it's not too personal, can I ask, um, uh, like, what did did? Were you able to find a diagnosis? Were you able to get support and help? I mean, I cannot imagine the pressure you would have been under as an 8-year old being told that, okay, it's time for you to be a man. I mean, just, you know, that seems impossible to me. But when you started recognizing the mental health symptoms for what they were, were you able to get a diagnosis?
So I was able to get a diagnosis, but the fun of the trivial thing was the diagnosis used to keep changing every visit that I would have with the psychiatrist. So I mean, I have like a list of diagnoses now, and they've kind of ascertained as to okay, it is this. So
Right.
my main diagnosis was generalized anxiety disorder,
Hmm.
ADHD, adjustment disorder, apparently panic disorder, migraines. Yeah, so there's a long list.
So you win the mental illness lottery then.
Oh, yes. I mean, it was like there's a raffle with all of these potential things. But me being the lucky man that I am, I picked up every single one of them every time I went there.
Ankith, I have to ask, how can we be laughing about this? There's going to be people that are listening to this and they're going to be going, how are these two people laughing about this stuff?
I think, well, it's definitely a better option than crying about it. So, I mean, might as well have a smile and a laugh about it. But
Yeah.
I think the really important point is perspective. So
Mhm.
for me, I think I used to feel like the world was shattered, couldn't see any light ahead. And people used to always say there's light at the end of the tunnel. And my famous dialogue was, yeah, I'm going to get to the end of the tunnel, but it's going to be eclipse night, so there's going to be no light.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh God, he's really depressed. Because they
For me,
couldn't, yeah, they couldn't
for
rebut
me,
it.
I was always like, I'm pretty sure the end of my tunnel has collapsed. So, there's been a cave in or something.
Yeah, exactly. And like I was in a similar position. But I think when you start to see other people who are really struggling much more and also in more than one way, and when you also start to think or trivialize saying, okay, what's happening to me? And you start to try and list it out. And it's like, okay, but why is this stopping me? Or why can't I work around it? Or what can I do to address it? So I think bringing that logical rationality back and trying to address a problem head on instead of succumbing to it
Yeah.
is really important.
I love that you're not letting your symptoms, your diagnoses, stop you. It's like if you don't know what a problem is, you can't work through it. And I had a wonderful psychiatrist say to my daughter the other week, I'm giving you diagnosis not to give you an excuse. I'm giving you diagnosis so that we know what to work through.
100%. And I mean, I think for me, the biggest challenge was until I got a diagnosis or until I figured out what the problem was.
Mhm.
Because I think. I think even in medicine they say right, half the problem is solved in a surgery when you can start to see
Mm.
what's happening while you're doing it. Until you're going in the blind, you're at a big risk. So for me as well, until I knew what was happening, I was really honestly scared and I didn't know what was happening because nobody had a clue. And I definitely didn't have a clue. But once I got my diagnosis, it's easy for me to say now, but then yes, I did go shatter, especially because my psychiatrist said, oh, it's going to take 3 years until you show any improvement. And I was like, oh my God, my life's done kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I think it was support of family, friends, and also my own mental willpower, which said, I mean, look, they say 3 years, but it doesn't have to be. Totally depends person to person, case to case. So I did whatever I could. I did the right things, ticked all the boxes. And yeah, within 6 months, I turned my life around from just sitting at home, not even being able to get out of the house. I landed a job in the APS, got to university with an ATAR of 98.2. And from them asking me to drop out of school, luckily I had really good student counselors and student advisors who said, look, Ankith, we've seen your marks, so don't attend classes. It's all good, but just come and sit the exam just for the heck of it. Just write your name, just do a couple of problems, get through it. I was like, okay, sure, mate. And I came out and they were like, hey, you've got a selection rank of 98.2, including adjustment factors because you were disadvantaged. I was like, hey, that's pretty sweet. I was going to drop out.
Mate, you're a walking inspiration. And,
thank you.
I'm really glad to have been able to chat to you today. We're going to get you in more on 2XX. I have to. You're just too good. We're
Thanks,
going to
Mark.
get you in the studio. We're going to use you some more. Ankith, this has been a conversation that I do not want to stop. But we've only got so much time. So I want to ask you, mate, is there something that makes you go, Oh,
I think 100%. I think the thing that really makes me go, is when you start to become vocal about you having a mental health condition, people really start to judge you and they feel really insecure. They think you're going to take out a knife and maybe stab them, or even worse, they think that you can, I don't know, do anything at any given time and you're just a ticking time bomb. And to make things worse, when you personally go and hear from counselors and psychiatrists saying, oh, mate, we're going to do what we can, but it's going to take 3 years, it's going to take 5 years for you to show any improvement, you feel gutted and you feel like, oh, there's no way out. And I feel when a treating professional isn't going to give you hope, or, I mean, I understand what they're trying to say. They're not trying to get your hopes up too much as well. But when they say 3 years, 5 years, nothing's going to happen, I mean, I feel like, what's the point? I mean, what am I going to do with my life?
There's a difference between giving you too much hope and giving you a little bit of hope.
Exactly.
Even if they said it could take up to 3 years, depending on how you but just to say outright, it's going to take 3 years. But yeah, the other thing that you mentioned about when you talk to people about the fact that you have a mental illness and you kind of watch them, that it's almost like how things were when COVID was around. It's like you sneeze out in public and people are like,
oh my
when
God.
You say I've got a mental illness, people are like, oh.
Yeah, they're really taken aback.
What would your advice be to somebody that's happened to? Because there's going to be people listening to us today that are going to go, you know what, Ankith, I've not heard anybody say it as point blank as you have, but that's happened to me. People have started acting weird around me. What's your advice for that person?
I mean, I honestly think, I also personally know, even in my workplace, so many people who day in, day out go through mental health issues or any kind of health issue for that fact, equivalent to me, more than me, less than me, whatever it is. I mean, not to compare, of course, but they're just really scared about how people are going to judge them and that it's going to impact them even more. But I honestly feel there's nothing wrong about it. Your mind's just another organ in your body. I mean, for example, if you had an upset stomach, it's not like you're going to go, oh my God, I can't tell anyone I had an upset stomach because people are going to judge me because I ate something that I shouldn't have. I mean, it's not like that. I mean, everybody understand. And your mind's like just another organ in your body. And if you need help, and it's not like every condition, every person has something which is extremely, I don't know, violent and they're never going to recover from that. It can be something as small as you getting headaches, or it can be something as small as just a bit more anxious than someone else.
Yeah.
But as soon as you say mental health, people go, oh my God, you're done for. So I honestly started using the term mind health quite a bit more than mental health, because people have literally made the word mental into such a bad terminology, saying, oh my God, you're mental. But what does mental actually mean? It means something related to the mind. But the way the society and many people have just made and put out the word mental to be has just become like a taboo word.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I actually thought for a while there that stigma was gone. I thought, oh, there's no stigma with mental illness until my daughter, who has ADHD and she's on the spectrum, she applied for her first job and she came to me and said, Dad, do I put down that I have anxiety and depression? And I just went, no, no, because you are not going to get the job. And that just reminded me that stigma is alive and well, whether we like it or not. And until we can get to a point where it's the same as, say, somebody in a wheelchair applying for a job, you just go, look, they're a person that's going to need different kinds of support. They're a person that's going to need different systems to help. They're going to need, ramps. They're going to need special tools and stuff. As soon as, when we get to that point, when we can say, look, hey, I live with, say, schizophrenia, and people don't lose their minds and not give you the job, but go, you know what? We can work with you with that. What special conditions do you need? You're as valuable as anybody else. I think when we get to that point, we can all rejoice.
no,
All right. We're going to take another very, very short break. And then when we come back, I have to ask Ankith how he keeps a smile on his face. What does he do for self-care? I want to know, because this is a man that is a shining light of brightness even through all of his diagnoses. So we'll be back with Ankith in just a moment. Okay, welcome back. You're on 2XX. We are chatting with Ankith today. He has been so kind to share us a little bit of his journey with mental illness and his lived experience. But this is the question I've been waiting for. So ever since we first started chatting off air, I've been like, I need to know what this guy does for self-care, because for somebody with a story like his, to be able to laugh as easy as he does and smile as easy as he does, mate, I need to know your secrets. Tell me about self-care.
So really simple, Mark. I think my self-care constitutes of one of three things. So one thing that I really do, which many people are surprised of, is play chess. I just get right into it, and people are like, "Oh my god, isn't that so stressful? How are you going to play chess?" And that's just going to make your life worse. I'm like, mate, I'm not playing a tournament. I'm not playing the Grandmaster titleship for me to be stressed. I'm playing it because I like it and because it's fun. So that's one thing that I do. The other thing, I guess, is I really like to binge watch comedy uh, videos, like stand up comedy, some movies, some web series. And I think the best of them all is just some quality time with family. It can be playing a small game, it can be just having a stroll together, family dinner, anything. That tops it all off for me. I mean, people really feel and say, oh my God, you live with your parents still and you go out with them for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Don't you have a life? Don't you have friends? I'm like, they are my life. Yeah, I love going out with them. I love spending time with them. So I feel there's nothing wrong at all in that. And it really gives me a lot of satisfaction and joy to see them have a smile on my face and for me to also have one. That we're just having really good time at that point of time, irrespective of whatever's happening in our lives.
I love it, mate. You've got the keys. Do something that you love, that you're passionate about, that gives you joy, that's just for you, even if people don't understand it. The connection with your family, that's amazing. And the third one, it's just slipped my mind. I'm a terrible radio announcer.
The chess.
The chess, your family, and there
the
was
movies
another one.
and the TV shows.
Movies and TV. Have you watched a guy called James Acaster?
Oh, not yet. You've given me a good one now.
All right. Well, when we get off air, I'll give you his details. He's a guy that I'll give him a plug. He's James Acaster. He's a British comedian, and he just did this hilarious set And then he came out with his new special, and it was after he'd had a bout of extreme mental illness. And as part of his show, he talks a little bit about this, and he says at one point, I'm embarrassed to tell you this. And he stopped and he went, no, I need you to know I'm not embarrassed that I have mental illness. He said, I'm not embarrassed about that at all. I'm embarrassed about this little part of the situation. And the crowd got it and just went, whoa, and he got a standing ovation. Just
amazing.
a guy that's willing to, not be ashamed of how he feels. Ankith, this has been incredible. I'm going to make a promise to the listeners. We're going to get you back in. We're going to get you involved in this show. You're amazing. Thank you so much, buddy. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure's mine.
Thank you for listening to Mark My Words. I'd like to thank my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And I can't forget the band Adelaide, who allows us to use their song as our theme.